Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Hairston. Today I am so elated to have one of my favorite professors. Besides being a professor, you'll hear in the introduction video coming up who she is and her contribution. But welcome, Dr. Mary Hemphill.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Listen, me too. Thank you so much. You don't know how big of an influence you have been on me as a professor, as a leader. So
I'm honored, James. I'm honored. This is exciting.
Awesome. So can you share your journey through the Leadership Studies program, if you recall that?
Yes, absolutely. So when I joined the Leadership Studies program in 2012, I had just become one of the state's youngest principals at the time.
Wow.
And it was, everybody was like, how are you going to run the school as well as take courses? So, as soon as that last bus would roll and I would wave to my kids, I was in the car headed to campus.
Wow.
And James, it was more of a confirmation for me that I was in the right place at the right time, because it wasn't until I got into the interdisciplinary studies, just those first core classes that first year, that I realized that my mentor was right. I was before I joined here, before I got accepted here at A&T, I was at another university in an EDD program. And my mentor pulled me aside one day after church and he said, there's nothing wrong with EDD.
Right.
He said, but where you're going, if you want to cast a wide net, if you want to be able to appeal to audiences outside of education, then a Ph.D. is going to allow you to have that foundation of philosophy, of theory, and then be able to apply it to any industry.
Wow.
And James, it was the best decision.
Yes.
It was the best decision. Sitting in that class over in Proctor Hall and being surrounded by leaders in healthcare, in finance, in nonprofit, and not just education. It forced me outside of my comfort zone, because you couldn't tell me anything about education. Like I had done it right by that point. The years I had spent in education, the only way to go was outside, because I wanted to expound my gifts. And what I found is that I'm not creating young leaders in my schools to just become educators.
Wow. Okay.
They're going to be creatives. They're going to be in corporate. They're going to serve our country. They're going to be employed. And this program here in this interdisciplinary space allowed me to think differently. It leveled up my level of questioning. It also allowed me to be able to step into somebody else's shoes or stilettos. Okay. And to see that this problem has multiple dimensions. And so I will say I needed this I think this program I needed this program more than it needed me, because it expounded what I thought was possible for myself. It challenged me. Our professors here in this program, they hold us to a standard of excellence. And so you have to output excellence before you get into the marketplace.
Yes.
And here you have support. But I will say that this program really made the difference in how I lead, how I show up now. And those 3 years, from all the way from that first course to picking my dissertation topic.
Yes.
With Dr. Ross Baber. Was one of the best professional and educational experiences I've ever had.
Yes, and if you don't mind, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. So tell us about that, choosing your dissertation topic, and how was your dissertation experience?
Yes. So all you hear during that first year is you want to pick an area where there is scant research, where there's possibilities to ask questions that haven't been asked, and you want to fill a hole in the research. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm in education, right? Our industry has changed so much, it's evolved so much, but the one thing that's held true is that schools are only going to be as successful as the leaders who lead them. And so we have in North Carolina what we call the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey. And it's a survey that's given biannually to every public educator in our state.
Wow.
When I got into my statistics class, I think it was the last semester of my second year of the program,
Okay.
I realized that we're not doing anything with that data.
Mm.
We had been doing this in our state for almost 2 decades at that point, but no one had done a qualitative and quantitative analysis on those responses and then said, this is what teachers are saying about schools, this is what they're saying about leadership, and this is how we're supporting teacher leaders in their experience in public schools.
Wow.
So
Wow.
working with my dissertation chair, we pinpointed a question, which was looking at how does shared vision impact teacher leadership in our state when it comes to suburban, rural, and urban communities. And we analyzed 16,000 pieces of data with a cross-analytical study. We ran ANOVAs. We did the whole 9.
Right.
But the beauty of the Teacher Working Condition Service, we pulled out the 9 constructs that spoke specifically to leadership. And I was able to show what happens to teacher leaders and their perception of self when they're in schools and they're supported by a leader who says, you're a professional expert in the classroom.
Oh my goodness.
That dissertation process was arduous because we tapped into data at the state level that had never been requested before. What ended up happening is the state ended up using that research, and in 2014 I got Dissertation of the Year for the LEST project. So I was excited. But what it showed us too is that there are some major leadership opportunities that are happening in our public schools, and how we construct that knowledge around teacher leadership is going to make the difference in how successful our students are and how successful our public schools are as well.
That's amazing. You all check out her dissertation, pull it up and read it. Because I think I'm going to do the same thing.
Oh, you're so kind. You're so kind.
So, Dr. Hemphill or Mary?
Mary. Please call me Mary.
Okay. What was your motivation in pursuing a leadership-focused degree?
Yes. So leadership is one of those things that people, sometimes if they don't have the title of leader, they don't see themselves as a leader.
Right.
And James, I'm telling you, from a student all the way to being a principal, I was always drawn to magnetize to schools that needed transformation. So whether it was schools that served low socioeconomic populations, or schools that didn't have the best resources or didn't have large budgets to be able to do what they need to do for students, that was my sweet spot as a transformational principal, but also being a product of one of those schools. Because when you're in one of those schools, you hear the conversation, you're in the community. And so when it came to leadership studies, I truly innately believe that if you're a human and you have influence over anything, you are a leader.
Wow. Okay. I love that, because often we get into this whole conversation, almost sometimes it feels like a war of, are you a leader if you don't have the title?
Yes.
And you provided the perfect example and definition of that. So,
but I truly believe that, because think about it. Even if you're a solopreneur and you run your own company, you have influence over how you show up in your business.
Right.
Then if you are a C-suite leader of a Fortune 500, you have impact over potentially thousands of people and how those products or services show up in other people's lives. And so from the inception to thinking about that idea all the way to implementation, if you are leading anything in that process, leading anything in that content or that output, then you have influence and you're a leader. And here's the piece. Even in my schools, when I was a principal, when we said all, we meant all. So leadership for me meant my paraprofessionals and my front office secretaries, you're also coming to the meeting. I need you to hear the information. Cafeteria managers, I need you in there because you're feeding and serving people.
Right.
And I need our custodians there because you're everywhere. And you see the things that I'm not going to be able to see because I have to also be everywhere.
Right.
So leadership studies for me meant the study of human psychology and how people say, am I a part of this? And if I'm a part of this, how can I influence this so that it can go in the direction we need it to go in? Wow. That's like profound. Yes.
So you talked a little bit about it, but since completing the program, what kinds of leadership roles and opportunities have you taken on?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll jump right into it. So when I was in the program, I was a principal at the elementary level, and I had the opportunity to change my students from fifth grade to sixth grade. So I was able to loop with them, and I became their middle school principal.
Oh, wow.
During that time, though, the school that I was at served two very diverse populations. We had a very affluent community that poured into our school. We had a low socioeconomic community that poured into our school. And our school board and superintendent at the time decided to start a STEM magnet program.
Oh, wow.
So we elevated the first STEM magnet within this county and brought together two populations that had never historically been together before.
Wow.
But what do we know about technology, engineering, science, and math? It's an equalizer.
Yes.
So this opportunity to have access really helped our students. So that Christmas, 2 years after we started that program, I get a call from the then lieutenant governor who says, we are putting computer science into every school across the state of North Carolina, and we want you to lead the initiative. And you know when they were like wait,
right.
Wait a minute, hold on. Because James, I was not a computer scientist. I didn't go to school for computer science, none of that. But he said, I do not want you because you're a problem solver. I don't want you because you're a computer scientist. I want you because you're a problem solver.
Wow.
He said, you go into tough schools and you transform those schools so people can be successful.
Right.
He says, people are scared of computer science.
Yes.
Okay? And because we're scared of what we don't know anything about.
That's true.
And he said, but I need your innovation to be able to get this across schools, curriculum, standards. It would be bringing tech companies in to say, what is it that you're looking for in employees? So I leave where I was at. At that time, I was in Scotland County. I moved to Raleigh and became the state's first computer science director of innovation.
Wow.
And
wait a minute. Did you all hear that? Repeat that? The inaugural
North Carolina's first state director of computer science and innovation.
That is major.
Thank you. And you know how things happen in your life, but because you're in it at that moment, you don't see the magnitude of it. I will say, James, that decision, that phone call, and the opportunity to go to Raleigh, it changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something I don't think I would have pursued if I did not if I was just education tunnel vision. The interdisciplinary foundation.
Yes.
Because computer science, you're bringing together businesses, you're bringing together teachers who are nervous and scared about what this could mean for their classroom, and then working at the State Department with the general legislature and politicians. Like, this was an area that, as a school principal, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And to be a woman of color from Hickory, North Carolina, having the opportunity to do this was not something on my vision board. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I didn't wake up thinking, but it put me in rooms and spaces that required me to level up. It required me to gain mentorship in areas that I normally wouldn't have sought out mentorship. And that eventually led to me becoming chief academic officer for the entire state. And so
I love it. I love it.
And so, to go from, again, Southwest Elementary School as a North Carolina teaching fellow, teaching third grade, to chief academic officer, those pivotal leadership roles showed me so much. It humbled me so much, but it also put me in connection with people who would change my life and who I could learn from. And around 2019, I had been in Raleigh for a year. I just kept getting requests to speak on anything. It'd be leadership, school transformation, whatever. And James, I'd go and speak for free. You want me to come to your Women's Day? I'm there. You need me at your school convocation? Boom. And I was doing it for free.
Wow.
And finally, another mentor, he said, you've got to monetize your speaking.
Exactly.
He said, this is not something that you can keep doing for free. So I would be at my state job during the
Mhm.
day, and then in the evenings I would work on my business. So I've started a business in 2019 and would do it as a side hustle. Finally, in 2022, the request and ask that I was getting was far outreaching the work that I was doing at the state level. Like I was saying no to people, no to conferences, no to break it. Just I couldn't do both.
Yeah.
And I had to look in the mirror and say, what does my leadership look like now? Because your leadership is living and breathing. I'm not the same leader I was when I was here at A&T. But A&T gave me all the bricks to be able to stand on once I got in these rooms. And so in 2022, in August, I decided I'm going to make a plan. December, I'm walking away from all of this. And I'm going to walk into this business.
Were you nervous?
Beyond. Beyond. But
Yes.
James, change and growth happen at the edge of complacency and a challenge.
Wow.
I could have continued to transform schools.
Mhm.
I loved it. Like getting in there, figuring out what the teachers need, figuring out where the students go, figuring out what the community needs. I love that.
Yes.
And I could have kept doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the plan. The stepping away, January 1st, 2023, we started the Limitless Leader as a full-time entrepreneur. I have had the opportunity to come into contact with tens of thousands of corporate, nonprofit, and educational leaders across the country with keynotes, coaching, consulting, retreats, but in a space that is close to being the leader that I need to be, and not within systems that tell me who I should be.
Okay. That is Mary. Wow. I want to say let's dive into that a little bit deeper, but I know we don't have that much time.
Love it.
Wow.
I love it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I need a commercial break. But we'll keep going. So, switching roles and thinking about leadership philosophy. I know where you stand as far as the importance of a leadership philosophy. How would you define your personal leadership philosophy? Which leadership theories have had the most significant impact on shaping your philosophy?
Hands down. Transformational leadership theory and servant leadership.
Wow, okay.
Transformational because when you think about a leader's mind, your job is literally to get into the minds of other people and to figure out how can I connect their potential with their purpose.
Ooh, yes.
If you're a classroom teacher, say you teach math, how can I connect this child with the principles that are in this year's purview so that they can create purpose and meaning and be able to do mathematical concepts and problems and algorithms when they're not in the classroom?
Right.
If you're a C-suite leader, your goal is to say to my mid-level managers, do you have the purpose, which is to be able to connect these initiatives so we can create products and services, and then where's your potential? Where's the untapped potential so that you can lead better? Which means we create better products, which means we create better services.
Yes.
So my mindset, my skill set, and my tool set is my algorithm.
Like, these are so many good notes. I'm glad this is recorded. Mindset, skill set,
And tool set.
are your algorithms.
It's my algorithm.
It's your algorithm. Yeah. Wow.
So every day, what am I doing for my mind? Which means if you transform somebody, you transform the way they think. If you serve somebody, you give them space to feel safe enough to explore the things they don't know.
Wow. Yes.
And then the tool set part of it is that I know how far I can push James before he breaks.
Right.
But I also know not to let James just be stagnant over here for too long, because then he's going to get bored and tired and not see his potential in the organization. So when all three of those, tool set, mindset, and skill set, are working together as a leader, and you're constantly pouring into yourself, think about how dynamic you can be for other people.
Wow.
Think about how dynamic you can be for yourself. Because then you can't be a leader. If you're constantly working on your mindset, you don't say things like, we've always done it that way. Because you know that's going to lead to stagnation in your organization.
Correct.
So if you're constantly working on your mind, you're also pushing yourself to say, I may not be perfect, but I'm open to my employees telling me and giving me constructive criticism so that I can tweak and bend, so that I can improve, so that they're better. Because transformational leadership literally says we don't stay the same, but we support people in safe spaces to be able to think differently.
Right.
The servant piece of this is that if you are a true leader, you know this isn't about you. Everything you do as a leader is for somebody else, either to knock down a barrier so it's not so tough when they come to knock it down, to make them better and show them that it's possible where they thought before there was no opportunity, or to see the potential in them before they see it for themselves. Like if I can show you something that's in you and you don't even see it, that could be the thing that opens up your world.
Right.
But I have to have a skill set to be able to do that. You see what I'm saying? Because everybody cannot go in and have those types of conversations. So then you're asking yourself, what tools do I need?
Right.
What thought leaders do I need to be listening to? And what do I need to be practicing?
Yeah, that's real good right there. Wow. Okay. So, Mary, can you describe a leadership experience where your personal philosophy was put to the test?
Oh.
What did you learn from that experience?
Oh. Yeah. So, I was a fourth grade teacher. I started out early in my career. And I'm leading these students, and they're just absolutely precious. I'd had them in third grade, and it was my first class I looped. So I took them in third, and like we started fourth grade, first day, we're right back to it. I know the parents, we're not losing a lot of time. But the fourth grade was also the writing test, the North Carolina writing test. And so we practiced and practiced and practiced. I would give students prompts and everything. And this one prompt was, I need you to work this week to write a short story about something you would find under your bed. And I'm working with the students. I'm doing writing conferences. Like I'm like, when I say gave myself a gold star, like I was like, I'm teaching this week, right? These stories are going to be amazing. That Friday, they were supposed to share with the class, and I remember Zach had gotten off the bus, and I get a call from my principal to come to the main office because Zach is in her office bawling, and I can hear him in the background when she calls.
Right.
And I get up to the office, and I go in, and I'm like, Zach, what's wrong? Like he's cowering down, he's sobbing, I can barely hear what he's saying, and he's just mumbling. I said, Zach, I can't understand. Like, move your, I can't understand you.
Right.
And he said, Dr. Hemphill, I wasn't Dr. Hemphill at that time, Miss Hemphill. He said, Miss Hemphill, I can't do the assignment. And I'm like, what do you mean? We worked, like, we conferenced. Like, we worked all week. What do you mean you're just writing about what's under your bed?
Right.
He looked at me and he said, Miss Hemphill, he said, I don't have a bed.
Oh, wow.
He said, I sleep on a blanket with my 4 siblings in the living room.
Wow.
And James, you know, it's one thing to talk about power and privilege.
Yes.
When it's being done to you, but we don't talk about power and privilege when we're blind to it, where there's blind spots. Because I created an assignment that was dripping in middle class privilege.
Right.
The assumption that everybody has a bed.
Right.
And that everybody goes to sleep at night in their own space.
Right.
As a leader, that humbled me to, and always I remind myself to ask, who is not at the table, and what experiences or perspectives might I be missing with this?
Wow. Okay.
Because that little boy was in agony all week over an assignment.
Right.
Something simple. But he said to me, he said, Miss Hemphill, I don't want to make something up. He said, but I can't do this assignment.
Wow. How
many times as leaders do we set up these opportunities that we think they're phenomenal?
Right.
Everybody's going to latch onto this. This is airtight. But we've left out a critical person, a group, an individual, something, because we did not have the foresight to ask whose voice is missing from this.
Wow.
And it changed me because as a leader, you also never want to put people in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that really, in terms of my leadership philosophy and principle, we say no child left behind.
Right.
We've said that in the past.
Right.
You have to put feet to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't leave people behind.
I guess.
And think about how many times as leaders we make decisions that look good, sound good, feel good
Mm-hmm.
for how we were exposed to it and our power and privilege, but it's left somebody crying it somewhere where they are unable to act.
Wow. Yeah. That is, and then also, I was reading about mental fatigue. And
Yes.
what I would like to know is, one, as a leader, how do you empower those who you are leading to overcome mental fatigue? And then, what advice would you have for other leaders?
Absolutely. That's such a good question. The one thing I'll say is my answer would have been different 5 years ago.
Okay.
Because I told you, making that switch to full-time entrepreneurship. So my entrepreneurial mind is going to answer this question.
Okay.
Because what I realized is, as an entrepreneur, I did not want to create the same prisons that I had gotten out of.
Mm.
Working in education is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, let me say, but the time commitment and the mental commitment, it can lead to burnout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It can lead to compassion fatigue.
Yes.
It can leave you with 90-hour weeks and an imbalanced personal professional life.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as mental health goes, the one thing I tell myself and the one thing I tell my team is that there is no excuse for you not creating structures and spaces and systems that keep your mind healthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For instance, my chief operating officer, we have really leaned into work with your circadian rhythm.
Right.
If you are not a morning person, and I am not going to get the best out of you from 8 to 12,
Mm-hmm.
by all means, come in at 12 and leave at 7 or 8,
Right.
if that works for your life.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way I would have the autonomy or the authority to say that in a system that was not designed with me in mind.
That's true. Wow.
So I'm going to go back to something I said at the beginning, and you were like, this is, willing to delve into this.
Mm-hmm.
As entrepreneurs, in a system that wasn't created for me, that looks like asking for permission to do anything, to go to the doctor, to have a mental health day.
Right.
And if the projects and the processes and the policies aren't aligned with my mental health, guess who loses every time?
Wow. Yeah.
And not that I'm losing, because I applied for the job,
Right.
but I'm losing because I'm losing time and I'm losing the ability to say, I need a couple days because this needs a break. We've been dealing with some heavy stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I need to be able to step away.
Right.
So I give my team autonomy to be able to do that. But with that autonomy comes responsibility. Because I'm not saying don't do your work.
Right.
I'm not saying don't get the deadlines. Don't hit the deadlines.
By all means.
But I'm saying create a structure and a system that works for you so you can be your best self, so we get the best of you when you come to work. And then scheduling. I tell people all the time, if I look at your calendar, I can tell what you value.
Mm-hmm.
If you had looked at my calendar 5 years ago, you would have been like, you love your job.
Mm-hmm.
You really value this job. But when I realized that even for board meetings, for all of the meeting before the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting alerts on there, it's color coded, I'm not going to miss it. I wasn't even doing that for myself.
Wow.
I wasn't doing that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So now myself, self has to be on the calendar.
Right.
I have a color on my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I put an alert on it just like I would do for, so if it's time for me to step back and it's my reading time, meditation time, my time to go to the gym, I'm just going to treat it just like I used to treat those board meetings.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be with me 24/7,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not this job.
Right.
And that was the separation I had to make for myself and my team.
Wow. Thank you for recognizing that, you have to provide your team those same tools as you were talking about earlier for mental health. That's
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even compassion fatigue, this is the School of Education.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with some tough stuff right now in education.
Yes.
Not only are we being revolutionized, but like people came back different
Right.
after the pandemic.
Very different.
These are not the same children.
Right.
That weird, right? They are brilliant and bold and beautiful and amazing. They're just not the same children. And so compassion fatigue, if I'm a real educator and I care, caring doesn't stop because it's 5 o'clock.
Right.
Caring doesn't stop because you didn't answer my email today. So I'm carrying these stories, I'm carrying these narratives, I'm carrying these possible solutions with me everywhere I go. And compassion fatigue, if left unchecked, turns into burnout.
Ooh, yeah.
And then you can't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever been in a meeting where it's been years and you're just sitting there and you're like, I'm overloaded and overwhelmed with the capacity to keep caring, that's when you know you got to do something. You got to do something different,
Right.
and take action.
So speaking of taking action, when enrolled in your class, you had us do a leadership development plan.
Yes.
Right. And you gave us the autonomy to do it however we wanted to, and I'm adapting that for my course.
Love.
What does leadership development look like to you?
Oof. It is probably one of the most individual yet collective experiences, because leadership says, I know who I am, and I know what it is that I can do in terms of value and bringing it to this situation, this role, this organization. But a leader is nothing without followers. So I can think that I'm leading with authenticity,
Right.
and then have an employee tell me I'm just as fake as that plant over there. The leader in me has to decide, what of this is an authentic experience for this person? What are the actions and behaviors that keep showing up that make this person feel this way? And how I respond is going to make the difference as to whether or not they're ever going to tell me the truth again.
Wow. That's deep, because communication is the key. And we say that a lot, but a lot of leaders really don't know how to effectively communicate.
Absolutely.
And it's a book younger that I read in class, your class, that was very impactful to me as far as how to listen as a leader and putting action behind leading. And even the thing that got me was even going to the depths of saying, this is what I heard you say, and this is what we can or cannot do. But also providing reasoning behind those.
Yes.
So
It's like when leadership development is getting out of the headspace of, I don't have to explain myself. In fact, you do.
Right.
In fact, that's what people want. A leader, when they share their mind, I want to know how you thought about that.
Right.
I want to know how you approach that problem. And I want to know, when you were in the inner workings of that challenge, what did you do to keep yourself on track and not get lost in a labyrinth of wasted resources, wasted ideas, wasted potential? Because how often have you sat in meetings, well, don't say any names, but how often have you sat in meetings and you're like, what's the point? What are we doing and where are we going?
Right.
Well, part of the leadership development is like recognizing, I'm leading this group nowhere. Let me rein it back in, and it's okay to refocus. To say, I think we're off, y'all.
Right.
We need to get back. Let's ask some questions that get us back focused.
So, what are some of the strengths that you believe are essential for effective leadership?
Ooh, I love this question, because going back to skill set, I definitely believe executive presence is something that it does not matter if you are face to face. It does not matter if you're hybrid or in a remote setting. How you walk into a room, and not just read the room, but how you move the room through eye contact, through having command of your content and your specialization or your area, but then also how you have space and command over the nonverbals. Is this individual on their phone the whole entire time and checking out? Is this individual tuned in and they want more? Is this individual distracting you have to draw them back? The second skill would be negotiation. It does not matter if you are bartering services and skills or making a transaction when it comes to a verbal commitment to be able to do something or show up somewhere. How you negotiate says so much about how you feel about your worth.
Wow.
Because as a leader, you can either say, I'm not worthy of being in that room or on that panel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody says you weren't picked, you just let it go. But if you know that you have value to add, you can negotiate a spot. If you want it bad enough, you know how to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the third skill is just truly authenticity.
Okay.
You see it on social media all the time.
Yes.
There are millions of women out here doing hair. But if they don't do hair the way you do hair, then that is you showing up in your authenticity. You may have led several corporations or organizations, but it's something about the way you hold space for people. It's something about the way you are able to take these ideas and move the community. When you're authentic, then it's like, I don't just want James. I want everything that comes along with James because I know the legacy that he creates. So those would be the 3 skills that I would say every leader needs to not only master, but also practice, because your executive presence is going to look different if you're in a boardroom versus a classroom.
Right.
And it's going to look very different in a living room. Like if you're leading community members, you're not going to use the same type of language and vernacular that you would use with elected officials.
Right. Wow.
Because then you feel like you're talking down to them. So it's practicing those skills too.
So speaking of those skills and thinking of authenticity as a leader, often there are leaders who have that war between personal and professional. What advice would you give regarding leadership and, or balancing personal or your personality and your professionality?
I love this question, and I get it a lot. And I think that there's been 2 schools of thought. One, that personal and professional need to be separated completely, and that who I am in my personal life doesn't ever need to cross over into professional. And then there's those that believe that there's a melding or a coming together. And so the question I always ask is, am I a different Mary in different rooms? So for instance, if you ask my pastor, my best friend, and a colleague about me, and you get 3 different answers, that potentially could mean that I'm masking or just showing up in a way that I think that I'm supposed to show up in that space.
Wow.
Because if my pastor says, yeah, Mary's like real, she's a servant leader, she gets in here, she does like, and my colleague's like, Mary is a pill to work with. Like, can't, especially don't hit her on Mondays or Tuesdays. Like, she's not good at work. There's a separation there that needs to be looked into. Because when you think about personal and professional and who you are and laying down who you are in order to go do your purpose work, that's tough.
Right.
And when you think about authenticity, that means I'm comfortable in being me when I'm at work, and I'm comfortable being me when I'm at home, and I'm comfortable being me when I'm at the Piggly Wiggly getting groceries.
Right.
Because the mental fortitude it takes to figure out what mask I'm supposed to put on depending on who I'm standing in front of is everything but authentic.
That's deep, because when you're talking, or when you're giving us examples, I was thinking about how sometimes as Black people we have to code switch, and so as being a leader and having to code switch, or
and let me just a quick story about that. I'm a master of code switching. What do you need? What do you want to talk about this? You want to do this? Whatever. But I had this opportunity virtually at the height of COVID, and again, just started my business. Had a production company come to me and said, we need you to do some leadership development training for an organization of about 17,000 people.
Wow.
James, I had just started. I mean, we were working from home. We're trying to figure out COVID.
Right.
This was larger than any opportunity I'd ever gotten. And she said, you are up against 21 other leadership coaches and consultants with much larger firms than you. At that time, I only had a part-time virtual assistant. And so I interviewed with her. She was the HR manager. I eventually got to the second round and met with the VP. The last round is you have a one-on-one with the president of the company.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm like excited and whatnot, what have you. And at that time, it was around the time of George Floyd. And the one-on-one she was having with the finalists was to help her craft comments to be able to issue a company-wide speech in response to George Floyd. So we get on, I'm talking to her, everything. She starts reading the speech. The first words in the speech are, "I want you to know that I don't see color." This was a moment where, had I leaned into code switching, I could have let that ride.
Right.
The authentic part of me was not going to allow her to miss this opportunity. And I'm also interviewing to be able to be their leadership coach and consultant, like to bring my business in.
Right.
And I said, respectfully, let's stop there. I said, and talk to me about this sentence. I don't see color. And she says, well, I don't. I see everybody as the same. I see everybody as equal. The whole spiel. And I said to her, when you say you don't see color, you are dismissing the opportunity to acknowledge the beautiful and vibrant experiences, backgrounds, cultures, and creed of people of color who make up the tapestry of your organization at a rate of 64%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I said, so instead of saying, I don't see color, especially with this situation, because how you respond to this is going to set the course for your organization moving forward, I want to offer that you start with, I see the world in Technicolor.
Wow.
Because that allows you then to tap into the tapestry of not only the employees that work for you, but also the clients that you serve that sit on 5 different continents. Wow. And it allows you to not exclude them from what it is that you're about to say and walk with you through this very tough international incident. I ended up getting the contract.
Yeah.
And here's what she said. The notes that she gave to the HR director to read to me said, I love that she is nothing but her. I love her southern accent. And at the time I was wearing my natural hair out, and I love that in her natural state, she shows up as the voice that we need during this time.
Wow.
And James,
the voice that we need during this time.
And had I not, or had there been a separation of, like, Mary would have been like, girl, you cannot say I don't.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But in a way of bringing it back to say, with respect to who you work for and who you work with, and to respect to an entire group of people, marginalized communities that identify as people of color, you would be doing yourself a grave disservice if you said that.
Wow. Right. That takes a lot of boldness, too, to talk about that and provide that advice.
It did. And it was a risk. But as you know, a leader, you understand that the risk takes courage. Because if I had let her just go along with it, I'm probably sure the other 20 didn't say a word about I don't see color. Or whoever made it to the finalists did not say that. But the risk was, it was authentic to me and the work and the research that I have done when it comes to addressing individuals and communities when there's potential for polarization, and then also staying true to what it is that I would want to hear. If I was her employee and you say you don't see color, you do not see me in this situation.
Right. Wow.
And that wasn't going to stand for me.
So the risk paid off.
It absolutely did.
Wow. Yes.
And James, even if it hadn't, I still was authentic to Mary.
Right.
And I think that as a leader, you have to decide before those situations show up. I said this to you in class. You have to say, what are my values and what am I going to stand for before the conflict shows up? Because you can't be in the moment and be like, I need to evaluate my moral compass really quickly. Give me a second.
Right.
That's the moment that you have to stand on it or not.
Thank you for sharing that. That was, empowering. Let's see. So what advice would you give students currently developing their own leadership philosophy?
Oh, hands down, surround yourself with as many different mindsets as possible. One thing I do with everybody I work with is I have them make a list of the 5 people that they communicate with, connect with the most. And then I ask them some questions. And I say, put a check mark beside the people who are the same age as you, in the same industry as you, graduated from the same type of school as you. The more check marks you have, mean you're surrounding yourself with people who are just like you. The goal is to have no check marks.
Right.
Because we love labels as leaders. We love labels. Like, are you team Android or team iPhone? Like,
right.
Cold War, right? Green bubble struggle. But labels also tell us what we can and we can't do. Right. So when you take those labels and you're very intentional about what you call people and intentional about how you put people in boxes, then you can give them more autonomy to be able to show up.
I love that.
And it's hard because as a leader, you never want to put people on, you never know what is behind an individual until you have that relationship with them on a professional level, but you don't know their likes or dislikes or what they potentially could empower you to do. That doesn't necessarily show up on the job, but it shows up in life and it just makes you a better person.
Wow. Yes. So Mary, thinking of that, are there any other resources or experiences you would recommend that the viewers of this video seek out?
Yes. So when I say, we talk a lot of times, and I've talked to you a little bit about being in the system. One of the things the system did not afford me time to do when I was chief academic officer or principal, whatnot, is just the time for specialized knowledge, which means I can go read a book and gain 20 years of what that individual needed to pour into themselves just to write that book. And that puts me so far ahead of the curve. So I would say surround yourself with people, thought leaders, and text that is in the area or realm of what it is that you want to become better at or to empower yourself on, and stick to it. It's real easy to say, I'm going to read 52 books this year.
Right.
And then September, you've read one.
Yeah.
Right? Go back to the schedule. Put it on the schedule. This is my 30 minutes. I'm going to put an alert on it, just like I do everything else, and I'm going to stick to it. So it's the discipline to continue curating those three things: your skill set, your mindset, and your tool set.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to wrap up with two more portions.
Okay.
So goals and visions. What short-term and long-term goals do you have for your own leadership development? And Mary, can you describe your personal vision for your life and career?
Oh, that's so good. Okay. Short-term goals. Truly, my company melded into a family company. And so my sister is our chief operating officer. And my mom, who was 41 years in oncology, is our chief wellness officer who does wellness sessions for our clients. My short-term goal is truly to set up a line of generational wealth that doesn't die with me.
Wow.
And that's a shift for my family, who have been like, work your 9 to 5 and work your 30 years and do your thing, because entrepreneurship is not like that. But what I realized, my family has so many skills that we were not monetized. Like, monetizing wasn't even a question.
Right.
We weren't even replicating. We weren't even creating a system to get it to the people. And so my short-term goal would be that. To continue imparting the mindset and to leaning in to what this can look like as a family company, as women of color, because we know that the Caucasian dollar, the Jewish dollar, and the Asian dollar stay in their community for weeks.
Yes.
Okay, and the black dollar only stays in our community for 4 hours.
Wow.
And if we want different, we have to create different. And so that's kind of my short and long-term goal, because this is education. This is also massaging the muscle of, like, okay, we're not getting a check on the 30th. No, we're entrepreneurs. We have to go find the clients, and we have to go do that type of thing, right? So it's mindset.
Yes.
And so for myself, it's also long term. Is how can we replicate this idea of limitless? The limitless leader is for leaderless leaders.
Wow.
Who know there's something inside them. They know that there's potential. But maybe the person above them, or maybe 2 levels above them, can't develop them in the way that they need to be, because they themselves aren't even leading themselves. And that's not bad. It just means that they're not in a space to expand you, or not in a space to support you. So long term, my goal would be to create 1 million limitless leaders for this world.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah.
So tell us, how did we become a part of being a limitless leader?
Yeah, so you can go to our website,
Okay.
bealimitlessleader.com, and you can follow us on our newsletter. There you can subscribe, or find me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always posting content,
Yes.
tips, resources, articles that can help you really curate what your tool set looks like. And then we also have a newsletter there.
Right.
And we have several ebooks for leaders that just came out. So I'm very excited about those. So it's just nuggets that you can really pour into yourself. And then I have an affirmation album on Apple Music and Spotify.
Oh, wow.
That you can look up.
Okay.
So just
awesome.
affirmations to listen to.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, Dave. And then I guess last I'll talk about the reflection on the program impact. Bringing it back full circle. You told us about the beginning portion, your wonderful career, and the things that you have done and continue to do. Looking back at your time in the Leadership Studies program here at North Carolina A&T, what aspects of the curriculum have proven most useful in your professional life?
Hands down, I went to Meredith, which was a PWI,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to Western, which is public, mountain, Coley.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to HBCU and being in a room of like-minded PhD students, having professors that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
But here was the kicker. For me, looking back now, case studies that had people that look like me and where I came from, articles that were written by people of color, curricula that was written with the African diaspora in mind, reminded me that I was leaving a system where that was not always the case in terms of curriculum choices. And seeing me in the historical context, seeing women who look like me, or little boys and girls who had brown skin coming in as protagonists of stories. So looking back now and being in this program and being surrounded by people who look like me, reading about people who look like me, who had done things that changed our world, was all that I needed. It was the perfect, when I think about my formal education career, it was the perfect, I'm not going to say punctuation, it was a perfect semicolon to what was going to happen in the rest of my journey.
Wow. Right. How do you see the role of leadership evolving in your field or industry over the next decade?
Yeah.
And what could you tell our current students to do to prepare?
I love this. These are great questions. This is a great question. Alvin Toffler has a quote that I've been just loving, and he said that the literate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read or write. It will be those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Ooh. Wow.
And James, we're unlearning so much. Let me make it universal. Our mom said, don't you get in the car with strangers.
Right.
But we call a stranger to bring their car and pick us up and take us places.
Wow.
Don't you go in a stranger's house.
Right.
But we will pay a stranger to sleep in their spare bedroom when we go on trips. As a people, we're unlearning life. And so if I could give a piece of advice, lean into the unlearning. And just stay hopeful to the possibility that there is another way that you can do this. And maybe you're the person who's going to come up with it. Or maybe you're the person who's going to systemize it or monetize it. But just know that there is comfort in the change, even though things are always changing.
Thank you so much for giving this time to us and all of this knowledge. Hopefully everyone came in with as a sponge and just soaked up all of this knowledge, experiences that you've shared with us. Like, going back to having you as my professor, like, oh my gosh, class was amazing. Every week we all couldn't wait to get there to hear Dr. Hemphill tell us more about leadership. So, but yes, and to also connect and see that she's an Aggie and like have that Aggie pride. You could tell when she's teaching and leading the guided discussions. It was like, oh my gosh, phenomenal.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm so honored.
So thank you for coming.
It's been an honor. And James, I told you this before, I'm going to say it again. You are a leader of leaders.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And so the way you influence the room, even when we were in class, when you spoke up, people sat up.
Mm.
And so I want you to know, when you're a leader of leaders, to ask for the thing, to show up for the thing, because we are watching you, and you are literally knocking down barriers for other people, because you just know you, and you're so good at getting to the thing. So thank you for your influence, and thank you for showing up.
Oh, wow. Yes. Wow. I appreciate it. Well, this wraps up my first session. So hopefully we get to have you on campus more and within the program. And